All right, everyone. So welcome to the November 2022 edition of the Discovery and User Experience Advisory meeting. This will be our last meeting of 2022. Um, so it will be super fun, I promise. Uh, our agenda here. So we've done our welcome and introductions. We'll briefly talk about the Aspen user group. And then Scott's going to lead a discussion on facet granularity. I have some A/B test results to share with you. And then last meeting, we talked about changing some of the displays for the facet counts. So I'll have some of the folks that volunteered to do that, to pilot that change, talk about that and talk about just a little bit of extra research in that area. And then we will do an Aspen development activity. So we usually do some version of this at our meetings. This one will be kind of setting our priorities for the next year. So it'll be kind of a bigger activity than usual. And then hopefully if there's time, we'll talk about some changes coming up to linked cards in Aspen. And then I wanted to point out next year, starting with the January 2023 meeting, actually all of our user group meetings will now be will be an hour and a half. So 1:30 to 3, or typically like 9:30 to 11. So just something to kind of keep in mind, especially since we're meeting online. It seems like that shorter format, kind of eliminating the need for a break, might help y'all plan your days. So let's kick it off with the Aspen user group. I've heard so far from one person, Melissa. Um, and actually, I'm sorry, I heard from Sarah Slack as well, who I don't believe is here today, volunteering as co-chairs. We're waiting on one more person that was interested in being a co-chair. So we're working on getting those meetings set up. The Aspen user group, you may be asking, what is the difference between that and Dux? So the answer for that is that it would be a true user group, where Dux is an advisory group. For the advisory group, we tend to get information out of you. We're having you participate in research activities. We have questions for you. We need your input on. We're putting you to work. For the user group, it's an opportunity to network, to share ideas with your colleagues. So it's an opportunity, especially if you're just looking just to chat about like browse category ideas, what other people are doing with their teams, how they manage their um, purchase suggestions, that kind of thing. Sort of just an opportunity to share those tips and tricks among each other without Swan staff talking and hogging the conversation. So yeah, we hope to get those on the meeting calendar pretty soon here. Any questions about that Aspen user group? Don't see questions in the chat. Okay. Great. We'll move on to the facet granularity discussion. Scott?
Oh, I thought I had more time. I am still getting set up here. But I'm going to
You
share
want to
my
share? Okay,
screen. Yeah. So
gotcha.
this is this one. Yes. Okay. So, right, what we're talking about today is something that's a direct result of some updates to Aspen that have taken place over the past couple of releases. And so I talked to this a little bit with cataloging advisory. So Julie, you've heard this. If you want to like go take a walk, I won't be offended. But for everyone else, basically what the question became, what do we want to do with some of the new formats that were added or enhanced in the past couple of releases? We touched on this, I believe, in this group maybe a year ago, maybe more. But I didn't really have any data to back up what was happening. It was sort of too conceptual into the future. But now that we have some changes, I just wanted to show you something and get your take on it. So I'm doing a search for this one particular thing that just came up last week. Actually, Danny, you might have brought this to our attention. But this is just a title that has a lot of formats on it, so it was a good for an example. So I'm skipping down. Um, we have this one title that has a Playaway book pack, this thing which is called Preloaded Audio in a Wonder Book. So basically, prior to the changes that took place over the past couple of months, we'd made the decision to create this preloaded audio format as sort of a catch-all format for anything that was a device that was, talking at you or reading to you, or an audio device, whether it was a device that was attached to a book, whether it was a standalone device, whatever the branding was. 95% of them are those playaways, of course, the regular playaway audios, but a lot of other things were falling into that format. And then it was originally called Playaway. That Playaway format was misleading, so we called it Preloaded Audio just to become a catch-all. Now that we have these things starting to separate out into Playaway Book Pack, into Vox Books, into Wonder Books, and all of those branded names, my question is what direction we want to take with these formats. The two options that I have in mind, obviously, are the granular choice of keeping all of these brands separate entries as you see here, renaming Preloaded Audio to Playaway, and that sort of has a ramification that you know exactly what you're looking for, you know exactly what you're getting. On the other hand, as more formats emerge over time, we have to make sure that we are getting them properly separated out, both in the cataloging and in the interpretation of that format through the Aspen system. The other option, of course, is to sort of recollapse these. Now that they're properly labeled, we can sort of recollapse them into new generic names: Preloaded Audio, Preloaded Video, and I'm thinking like the word read along or something. That's the question on the table, because I don't have a horse in this race. And the cataloging group didn't have too much feedback on this area. We're really just wondering how these are being searched, what patron expectations are, and what the folks that are working at the desks would prefer. So I just wanted your initial thoughts before we sort of maybe do a more focused research, like a survey or something, to sort this out. That's my spiel. So feel free to unmute and share any ideas you have in this arena, even if it's just a feeling, a gut feeling.
So I think Kenny and I were some of the people who were putting this on your plate to discuss. At our library, we have Wonder Books. So like our patrons know what a Wonder Book is. They know that format.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that it's in there, and I was excited to see that it was an option. However, I'm sure they would like Vox Books if they knew what that was. So maybe a combined read-along format would work. I guess I don't have a strong preference one way or the other. Although we do have, we have some weird things where we have the book in the back of the CD in the back of the picture book, which in my head would also be a read along, but you do need the CD player. So maybe we could leave those alone.
That's true. Those wouldn't fall into these categories. You're right. But the word might set an expectation. Read along.
So yeah, I think either we need to do patron education to let them know, like, oh, if you see a Vox book, you can click that too and you'll get what you want. Or now as I'm speaking, I'm leaning more towards having a generic term so that they'll get the kind of thing they want, even if they don't know the right name. But what do other people think?
So at my library, we just started getting Vox books about a year ago, and we call them read-alongs. My boss did that specifically in case we were to ever get something like Wonder Books. And that way we wouldn't have two separate call numbers for them. So I don't even know if my patrons know what a VOTS book or what a Wonder Book is. They might only know what a read along is. And I kind of like that for making it a little more generic. Rather than having specifically Wonder Book or VOTS in there.
Sure.
Something else that maybe, and that I was sort of wondering how many of you have multiple types of those preloaded audio devices, because that would have combining would have an impact on holds. So, you know, say you put a hold, if they're separated out and you put the hold on the Wonder Book and the Vox book becomes available, I don't know if a patron will really care, but they're not going to get that Vox book if they've placed a hold on the Wonder Book record, right? But if those are grouped together under one format, they place a hold, they're eligible for that hold could fill either of those formats, I believe.
That's another question that I actually didn't even think of, whether Vox and Wonder Books will ever appear under the same title, or if there's maybe some sort of licensing restriction that would prevent that in the first place. But that's something I don't really know.
I mean, certainly in this case, it looks like the Playway Book Pack, Wonder Book, and Preloaded Audio have all grouped under one record.
Wonder Book is a Playway brand. Am I right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you are.
And this is a Playaway as well. So yeah. Anyway.
Oh, Gina's missed the whole discussion.
Hmm?
Do you want to give Jean a 2-second version? Her
Jean.
browser
Oh,
crashed.
she just come in. Sure. What we're talking about is with this example on screen, we have new formats here for book packs, for Vox books, for Wonder Books, for all of those different brands. And my question to the folks here is whether we like those granular, specifically branded formats to be separate, or if we want to collapse them into generic names like preloaded audio, preloaded video, read along, for example, something like along those lines, to put those brands back together and sort of focus on more the delivery mechanism as the format.
I like that idea, but I think people don't always know what those terms mean. Like they know what a Wonder Book is or Playway, but it's like preloaded audio. Like they might not.
I feel like if someone is looking for a read along, then they might not necessarily care what the particular brand is, but if someone is a fan of a particular brand, then we could leave that in the wheelhouse of just speaking directly to a librarian to narrow down that particular kind of.
Yeah, I think if it's a term like read along that people would recognize, that could be good.
We could also hash out the terms. I'm using them as examples because they're what's in my head. So if the terms do seem vague and unhelpful, we could definitely find something else to replace them with.
The only thing that I hope we maintain is keeping playaways and read-alongs separate, because that's been one of the annoying things for patrons. They only want to see the read-alongs, and I can only show them everything previously.
Yes, that is absolutely
Agreed.
That goes without saying in this new world. Yeah.
And for my clarification, is the read along that you're discussing, Michelle, the book plus CD, basically?
No, I was using that in place of Wonder Book.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
With the audio
the book
attached.
plus CD is probably going to be an outdated format. We have lots of patrons who don't have CD players anymore. So while we still have a bunch of them, I don't know that we need to really focus on them. if they're
Mhm.
gonna end up fading away.
I don't think there's also a practical way to separate them from other books with CDs that aren't read-alongs, you know? So they're going to just, by the nature of how their catalog, need to stay together in that one big book plus CD category.
Jen had a question if playaways are the only preloaded audio version typically aimed towards adults. I see
don't-
Michelle shaking your head.
Well, I guess I don't fully understand the question, but kids love playaways too. I guess is the question, are the read-alongs are mostly for kids, not for adults? That's true. Although there are chapter books that are wonder books.
I think the question was, are there other options for adult-oriented preloaded audio? Other than Playaway?
Not that I know, but I don't know adult.
I'm not certain I could name one either.
Me neither. I order the audiobooks here and we get Playways.
Which is
Maybe
a
they have no
factor.
competitors.
Mhm. Not to say someone couldn't enter the scene, though. Sorry. These are good initial thoughts. And I guess, well, Tara, I would like to put my head together with you to sort of figure out how to get more out of this. Just some more voices into the room, even
Yeah.
putting it to a vote. But this was helpful for me. Thank you. This is really what I wanted. Are there any additional thoughts before I turn it back to Tara for the rest of the agenda? Cool. I'm
Like-
never sure how to unshare my. Here it is.
Like you're doing that. Sounds like Jen just had one more comment. I don't feel like getting more granular would affect the adults as much as the juvenile collections. Yeah, so maybe if survey or some kind of polling is in the future to get some more thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do something along those lines.
And I think maybe stewing on the holds aspect of it a little more might be beneficial as well. All right. Next up on the agenda is the some A/B testing results. So I was sneaky. I didn't tell anyone I did this. Well, except for one. But I ran an A/B test on all of your catalogs for about a month. And in version A, we had search results all had a link if you wanted to open up that all copies kind of modal window in search results in Aspen. The link was where is it? And then in version B, it was view all copies. We'd had some discussion on the forums and also in a ticket. You know, does the where is it make sense? It was changed in a couple of releases ago. So I thought, let's just see what happens. And I know the library that opened a ticket with me specifically, like they really wanted to drive the patrons to look at that view all copies. And the view, and do you all know what I'm talking about when you click on the okay. So drum roll results. They're really not that exciting, but the original was the leader. Where is it? Consistently got more kind of clicks per event than the other version, which was view all copies. So that is what that it's really not a huge difference though, actually. I use Google Optimize, which allows you to pretty easily run A/B tests, collect all that data. It's super handy and very easy to set up the different versions. So yeah, that was basically it. So I don't know if there's any discussion around that. If you were like team change that label. But also I throw it out there if there's any other like any burning questions that we could answer with an A/B test. I'm always looking. They're super easy to run, and I feel like they just make it easy to make decisions when you do have something that's very that has kind of like something that's very clearly measurable. Sometimes, like I don't know that we can. I don't think we can measure whether or not to have more or less granularity with our preloaded audio facets. Through an A/B test, it's a little squishier, but in this case, you can pretty easily measure clicks if you really, you want more patrons to look at that. Then, so Jen says, I think the original works well generally, but the variant would be helpful for periodical listings. Michelle thought where is it is a little weird when the item is checked out or not available. So I actually have more to talk about with that later. And that is actually when it's probably the most useful because then you can see where it is at other locations. Any other thoughts on the A/B test or any other A/B tests you'd like us to try out in the future? You can't think of anything now, and then after this meeting, you're like, oh, I got one. It's so good. You can definitely post it in the forums, and we can throw that up. All right. So related to that, and you know what, I'm going to I don't know this. Bring up my screen. I would want to do some serious usability testing if we were going to pursue this change. Let me bring up. Stop sharing the slides here. And share Aspen. Okay, we've got some new options as of this last release. Where if we wanted, we could not display this piece at all. And we could just have the where is it link. I will say we know from previous usability testing that finding the call number was easy and successful in Aspen. So I'd want to make sure people could grab that more easily some other way. But if we wanted to clear up some real estate on the screen, that would be a possibility. I thought I'd throw it out to the group if that's even of interest to research.
So I think that extra click would be awful to have to click just to find the call number of it. Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea.
I agree with you, Kelly. I don't think I think adding a click is not the best. I know we gain space, but I don't think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, that was sort of my initial thought too, but I wanted to throw it to the group in case. I had one library that felt very passionately like they just wanted everyone to only look at this view. I'm not sure why, but like the kind of full library listing. So I thought I'd throw it out to the group in case of something of interest.
We have strong opinions, Tara.
Strongly against it.
Yes.
That's fine. All right. We're not even gonna worry about it. All right. There's some more comments. So like the view all copies make sense. And you know what? It makes sense to me too. But like, if the goal is to get people to look at full copy view, then then we're just wrong. But if our goal is not that, then you know, we don't want them digging around in there. Just grab that call number and go, or place that hold. There is an extent to which, unless you're going to get that item from another library, I don't know if it matters that much to see that full listing. We could always try it again and see if there's a different label. Also, all right. Well, that's all that. Let's see. Now I gotta remember next up on the agenda is the facet count changes. So a little slide. Refresh our memories of what that. So we have had the ability with the previous Aspen release to hide the counts that appear on the various facets in Aspen, of which there are many. And part of the reason for doing this is we show the total number of results, which is accurate. But some of those facet values are kind of estimated just because there's so many different possible combinations. And also formats aren't truly a filter. They're sort of hiding some of the format options available. Like if you selected ebook, all the other format options are there. You know, you can click on view the remaining formats and it'll pop those out. So it's things get a little muddy in the facet counts. And sometimes folks, depending on the search they're doing, they can just hit this, you know, weird where they have maybe their facets say there's like 40 results, but they have actually 0 results or 3. Yeah, so I wanted to hear from the 4 libraries that decided to take on this experiment and turn off their facet counts. So that was Itasca, Messenger, Villa Park, and I don't think Natalie is here today from Westmont, unfortunately, but I'll let you 3 speak.
Okay, so I'll go first. I'm at Itasca. I have not heard anything from patrons noticing it. When I asked my coworkers, only one of them even noticed the difference before I told them. They were like, oh yeah, there used to be a number there. I'm like, yeah, there did used to be a number there. And the one coworker who noticed didn't like it because she likes that there's at least an estimate of what she's going to find when she clicks into it. But to me, that here I go against myself now, but to me, just that one extra click of, well, I was going to click on books. I wanted a book anyway. Let's click on books. It doesn't seem like it's really needed, especially since the numbers are always so off anyway, if that made any sense.
Jean, what was your experience?
I liked it without the count. I think that just makes it better, easier, cleaner to follow. And I did not have any patron comments or staff. People didn't seem very invested, so maybe it's just us, but I liked it better without the breakouts of the numbers.
Michelle, what was your library's experience?
Pretty much the same. Most people didn't notice, even when I asked. did have one of our librarians who does a lot of displays was kind of annoyed, like she didn't bring it up. But when I asked her specifically, she was like, oh yeah, that's really annoying. Because she likes to know how many books when she's planning a display, like might show up. But that's not a good enough reason to keep it. I think I have to get in the habit of looking at the little search result number rather than to the facets, but it's not that big a deal. And I do like that it's cleaner without the numbers.
I know I do sort of like the visual display, even though that's not always the. So to accompany our kind of our little pilot, and I will say, I think I would like to make a recommendation of it, what we would like to do consortia wide. Like we could do an opt-in, opt-out, but that definitely gets complicated and kind of makes some complexity going forward with our Aspen configuration. So I think it would just be good to pick something for the consortium and make that recommendation. So keep that in mind. So we've heard from our pilots. I dug around for some examples. I did think it was interesting. I found this like old screenshot from old Amazon that listed all of their facet counts, but modern Amazon has ditched them. Probably because there's just so much stuff. is my guess there. And I went through a couple other retail sites. Target, no counts. Walmart was only retail site, or one of the only retail sites I found that had the counts. Etsy doesn't, eBay doesn't, IKEA does, they're the other one, and then Home Depot does not. So kind of just looking at what else in our kind of patrons web experience where they're, probably using a lot more facets and filters, frankly, than they do in the library catalog. What are they seeing out there in the world and using? So it was kind of it was 2 of the however many that was, 7 that I looked at. That said, I can't find another library catalog that does not include facet counts. So we would be a little bit of pioneers, I guess, in that area, or I don't know, going against the grain. So I just grabbed screenshots from BiblioCommons and Alma Primo, but looking at Polaris, and I believe some early versions of Vega Discovery, I believe they all post the facet counts as well. So some food for your thought. And just kind of a few final thoughts. Again, all of the library catalogs I looked at had facet counts, but many of the retail sites don't. The current counts can be inaccurate. So I think the question is, do we rather have, we rather just rely on that one accurate search results count, or do we want to have an estimate, even if it's flawed? The other thing to think about is Aspen doesn't do a great job of allowing batch filtering right now, meaning you're applying one filter at a time. You're clicking that book and then you're clicking your audience. There's a facet update just around the corner. It actually just hit the Aspen Lita app that's still in beta right now with this past release. So that is actually live, and it does allow you to select. You could pick your book, your book format, your audience, your fiction, nonfiction, apply all of those at once and go. And those facet counts at that point kind of become a little bit less useful than if you're applying those individually. All right, so we got some comments in the chat. Graham says the counts are visual clutter. If it would produce a 0 count, then it's hidden anyway, and that is correct. unless, I will say, unless you're batch applying those filters. Really. So the one downside of you'll apply them all at once, it's like nice and efficient, but you can still build an impossible search. Maybe there's some reasons the retailers got away from those facet counts. Yeah, and I think that's where it gets down to, Tim. I I personally use those facet counts to check our indexes. I want to, like, every time we have a release, I just do an empty search and I'm like, I know we should have around 900,000 book results for the whole consortium. If that number was like 100,000 for some reason, I know something's really, really wrong. But I still get those, and I can still get those in a if I just, hit the book filter, and then I'll see how many there are. Okay, so I'm hearing next accounts. Yeah, the inaccuracies do really drive me nuts, and that's the main reason I think I'd recommend getting rid of them. Okay. It sounds like we have a consensus. All right. Now I just have to decide, do we like alert people, or do we just do it and see if they notice? Like yours. Which sounds terrible, but apparently nobody noticed. And there might be people that are sad only if they know. I think probably what we'll do is just tie it to a release. So there'll be a handful of other changes, and we'll just kind of put those out at the same time. Group it with some other changes coming down the pipe. So that all sound good? All right. So let's see. Next up on our agenda, I've lost the agenda. Where did I put it? I just had it here. I'm gonna pull it up again. I think it is time for your favorite time and mine, the Aspen prioritization activity. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. No, I am not. All right. Development activity time. Okay. Go to the slides and bring up our Miro board. And I will got a couple new folks, so I'm going to go through the ins and outs of the Miro board. Posting a link in the chat. Let me know if you're able to open that up. While you do that, I will share my screen and do a little quick demo of how this will work. Already seeing the people flood in. All right. Okay. So if you are just old hat at this and you know everything, you can just you can minimize your Zoom window or whatever and ignore me. But if you're someone that's never used this tool, here's a quick crash course into what we'll be doing and then how you can move things around. So we've got our 4 categories you'll see: must do, should do, could do, won't do. So we will be moving the yellow stickies that you see into one of those 4 categories. We've got some already designated must-dos that I'll go over in a minute. These are things that have been set as development priorities already, either, well, basically by the Aspen developers. There are things they're already working on. And you can move any sticky note that you want. There's this little arrow here. If you click on it One time you'll get a little hand, so you could move this board around however you need to. If you click on it a second time, then you can select a sticky and move it around. I'll also point at the bottom here. Here's a couple controls. You can zoom in, which can be helpful because some of these might be hard to read. So if you need to zoom in and zoom out, feel free to do that. There's also this little map thing that can sometimes be helpful to kind of figure out where you need to move to. Zoom in a little bit. And as we're doing this, if you think of something like really important, bring it up. So what we'll do is we'll go through each of these stickies that we're gonna have you move into categories. These are things that SWAN libraries have submitted through tickets. Some of them are things that have come up in Ducks. And if you have like a really big thing that you want to make sure gets on the priorities for next year, we can add stickies now, bring it up, and we will discuss. So first I'm going to go through these stickies here, the pink stickies. These are 6 priorities that are already on the plate for Aspen development over the next couple of months. So one is visual design improvements. We've talked about that in this meeting a little bit. There's some mock-ups we showed a while back. And those are really looking especially at the filtering behavior and search results display. But there's some other improvements too. I think like it'll be moving to a full width. We kind of like, you saw like a little preview of that. We had the option with the last release to move to a full width search bar. And I think the whole design might be moving to full width or full width-ish. So you'll see some kind of design changes as well as some of the changes to how the filtering works. Part of that is being able to select those multiple filter checkboxes so you can kind of batch add your filters. There's also part of that is improvements to the My Account navigation. And then on the docket, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is improvements for linked accounts. So essentially how users can link accounts between each other, how they can unlink them, if they really don't want someone seeing their stuff. The preferred name in Aspen, this is a SWAN priority that we set not too long ago, and we were successful. We raised up the flagpole for all the ILSs. So the Aspen developers are looking at ways to manage that preferred name across multiple ILSs so that users could set the nickname or preferred name they have in Aspen. It would show up in Symfony and workflows for your staff as well. So I think that'll be a really positive change. And then changing Overdrive to Libby, which turned out to be more complicated and controversial than I thought. So as hard as it can be to find consensus among 100 libraries, when you start also throwing in like multiple consortia that use Aspen, there was a lot of debate. So we'll be manually translating all of those. We had to work out some things with the developers, but I think we're close to being able to just go ahead and change all those labels ourselves. So those are the priorities that are already set. These other priorities that are already moving around, I'm going to move them back so we can discuss them before we start moving them. These, basically, I'm going to give you a maximum of 5 additional must-dos. And that's it. That's all we got. And partly that's just being realistic. It'll take a couple months probably to get through that list, including the things that are already slated for development. So I want y'all to like be realistic. If we pile it up, it means most of that stuff's not going to get done. So I want to really identify the top 3 to 5 additional things y'all would like to see. So those are, we've got this, I'm gonna move the video games back. We got video games assigned as a book or a movie. So sometimes those just get grouped wrong. I think a lot of change has gone to make that better, but it's still needs some improvements there. Better management of lists for Aspen admins. That is essentially just some tools to help you as administrators manage the public lists you're displaying. Better display of assistive technologies or video formats. We added a closed caption icon that now appears for any videos with closed captions. So that was a big win. We got that in a while back. The other one we want to add is oh my gosh, Scott, can you what is audio description? I was like AD. No, what does that stand for?
Oh.
I spaced for audio description. There's also been some talk, I think, other libraries, including Nashville, that's interested in getting facets for those things as well. So you could facet on closed captions or audio descriptions. List links and search results. That's been a complaint for a while. You might notice in your search results, the list, it'll say like appears on these lists, and those are every list in the whole consortium. There's been a long-standing request to be able to limit those to just the lists at your library that appear on the search results. Does anyone need me to show that? Magazines do not always display in reverse chronological pub date order. That's been kind of a long-standing thing. I don't know how much development we can do with that, but if it's a priority, we'll definitely dig into that. Making the status buttons clickable. So kind of how we talked about those where is it link, essentially having that copy view pop up when you click the that checked out, available elsewhere, on shelf. That those would be kind of clickable and bring up the additional copies. We have some configuration for schools. I don't expect those to end up on your must-dos, but we will be keeping an eye out for some enhancements our schools have requested. We've had a request for a facet for all library systems. So right now, essentially right now in your catalogs, there's no facet to like select other SMON libraries. Kindle is missing from the format filters for some reason. That is actually a bug that I'm hoping just gets fixed, but it is annoying. It appears still in the formats and search results. It's just not filterable. If at any time you're just like, I don't know what you mean, please stop me. Checked out available elsewhere status in the detail display. Those labels like mismatch a little bit. I can't remember now which one is which. I can click on it. They're slightly different between, yes. In search results, it says checked out available elsewhere. And in the detail display, once you click into the result, it says available from another library. This is kind of a simple label swap. Displaying the ISBN on search results. This is something we had a discussion about in a couple meetings ago. And I think where we landed is adding links to the ISBNs and the grouped record detail, which do I have? Let's open up like any old, let's see, might be better. We went into the detail, list the ISBNs, and then linking these to that like particular record in the group if you're looking for a specific ISBN. Exact title matches. Aspen uses a popularity algorithm. So there's been a request, sometimes if you have a title that's very generic, like I know one of them was like on a dark, dark night. There's so many titles with dark and night in them. That specific title match may not surface to the top in a keyword result. So one possible thing to help with that would be if you're limiting by title, really up that weight of the exact title match in the search relevancy. Improving accessibility for spotlights. There's a couple things like auto rotating carousels that aren't accessible that we'd like to get fixed. Improving resizing for multiple spotlights. There's some funky things. If you've ever embedded multiple spotlights on a web page, you may have had the experience some things get cut off. A report for missing item covers, basically a tool that would allow you to see what records have no covers, so you could upload those if you so chose. I'm gonna click on this one because I can't read it. Prioritizing the primary authors over contributing authors in an author index search. So essentially, if you're doing an author limited search, the primary author would have more weight than any other additional contributors. Yeah, Jen says I often get Pride and Prejudice at the top when I'm looking for newer or less popular books, even if I search the exact title. Yeah, or like Tom Sawyer is also one that pops up a lot. It's those ones that have a ton of records, especially assigned to the group. Improving the drag and drop functionality and lists that came up in a meeting, I think our last meeting. Sorting lists by availability, so you could sort by what's on shelf, which I could see being helpful in a lot of contexts. And back down here a little bit. Copy standard number. I've forgotten what this means. I try to keep them all right here, but having a copy button to copy the standard number for a title in Aspen, so staff can move more easily between Aspen and Blue Cloud circulation instead of, highlighting it from the URL or highlighting the ISBN. And let's get through the rest of these real quick. Using advanced search with browse categories. This one I get asked about a lot. I would say if I was gonna guess what will land where, I would guess that would be a higher priority. That would allow you to make browse categories based on like call number, for example, is often the example that comes up. Right now, any browse category made with an advanced search, unfortunately, doesn't work. Display accruing fines in Aspen. I believe Graham brought that up through the forums. So right now, if a patron has, they have things checked out, they're overdue, they have a little notice, they've got overdues, but there's nothing telling them, hey, you've already racked up like $10 in fines with all those DVDs out. So that would be an enhancement to display those accruing fines. Which I don't know if I said this before, we did do some research and it is possible to get that out of web services. So it is possible to do it. Just needs a little extra development work on the Aspen side. Is this fixed? I may have missed this one. I believe this issue may have been fixed. Any of you using the tab spotlights can speak to that. I think that got fixed. I'm gonna like put it off to the side. If it wasn't,
I'm
don't
like 99% sure that got
I'm
fixed
99%
because
sure it was
yeah.
too. I usually try to scan these and I think I'll put it off to the side here. Graham confirmed. Okay, that was fixed. I'm so sorry I missed that one. And then last, we have a couple requests around the purchase suggestions. Staff would like a daily digest email that's sort of like these people submitted purchase purchase suggestions today. And then finally, materials request emails from the library. That just means right now, like if you are sending patrons automated emails through Aspen, like, hey, we got your purchase suggestion, or we're sending this over to collection development. Those all come from a generic email address. This is a request to have that allow you to set your own library email, like requests at, down as dglibrary.org, or I'm making that up. I don't know if that's your email. Then yeah. So as we've read through these, are there any burning suggestions you have to add for next year? All right. Well, I think it's activity time, and this is going to be the way we're going to do this today. Is it will just be there's an official name for this called the KJ technique, where you silently sort the post-its into the groups. But I think there's like I don't know. I think there's an element to this. This is like a little bit like you get to be mean if you want. So as you move things around, you can feel free to move things that other people have moved. We're going to let this timer run for about 10 minutes. If someone puts something in the must do's and you're like, that's absolutely not a priority, I'm going to move it up. You can do that. And then as we, as the timer ends, then we'll discuss where we left off. And we definitely, I will hold you to no more than 5 in the must do's. So you better keep to that. All right, I'm gonna set our timer here and go for it. Oh, I find the timer. Oh, let me stop sharing because that's weird if I'm sharing at the same time. You know, I'm gonna give it 7 minutes. I think we're already moving. Man, there's some arguments going on. At this point, we're maybe just down the editing wars. So I'm gonna say our timer's at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm at 30 more seconds. When it hits 3 minutes, we're gonna stop. Wait, no, did I? No. Oh, I already missed it. I let it go too long, didn't I? All right. I'm gonna stop it. And we have failed in our keeping the must-dos down to 5, and that's okay. So now we're gonna break out the dot vote for our must-dos. All right. You can only vote on the must-dos. And let me set up our top vote really quick here. Everyone, but I'm just gonna be I'm gonna be really mean. And you get 1 vote. So you get 1 vote on your must-do. You can only pick 1. You got 2 minutes. I'm starting. So there's other. I didn't quickly figure out how to lock it down to just the must-dos, but do try to focus on the must-dos. Those will be our priorities for the next quarter. 9 of 11 voted. Oh wait, which might be Scott, did you vote?
Yes,
You
sorry.
did. Okay, that's
Mhm.
okay. I'm
We've
not
already voted
voting.
on.
Okay, well, okay, now it's 10 of 11, and I know I think I'm 1 person, so I think I can end it. Is there anyone that didn't vote? All right. 11 of 11. Okay. Well then, okay, we're all good. Okay. Yeah, our top 3. Let me see here. Right. I don't know. Are y'all seeing the results in your screens? Okay. So yeah, video games, purchase suggestions, daily digest, and better list management. ISBN and drag and drop for lists. Each just got 1. And the copy standard number got 0. So I'm sorry, but copy standard number gets the boot. I'll put it as a could do for now. I do think that one is also, I don't know, if you go with the ISBN, do you need a copy button? But I could be convinced either way. All right, so we're done. We're down to our top 5, and clearly the most important for the group is the video games. Getting those like properly grouping and assigned. So that is some good guidance for us as we're working to set our priorities. All right. Any questions about the all the activity or the grouping or the priorities for next year. I will say I forgot to explain one of them to you, and you'll see there's a won't do. I'm always curious if there's any that people are like, no, let's just not do that. Which we have had some before. But this was a good one. It was adding a message to the reset pin page for Hoopla borrow limits. So essentially we have this issue where people, if they change their pin, they have to go and change it in Hoopla, and it's not very obvious. Hoopla will not make any changes. We've asked them multiple times, and they keep saying they will not customize it for a library, which I keep explaining. We're not asking you to customize it. We're asking you to make it better for everyone. But as of right now, at least, they don't have any plans to make that change. So we'd like if if you get like an error in Hoopla, like, oh, we can't log in, then it gives you like a nice handy direct link to your account preferences where you could re-add in your PIN. That's what we've requested. That's actually what was included in some mock-ups as well that they sent out when they were making the change to require PIN. So we'll keep on it, but at this point, we've made our case with Hoopla and there's not a lot else more to do. And we can't really do much on the Aspen side as those messages come in from Hoopla. So yeah, and we really just want to change it in Hoopla as well because like that's where that's where most of your patrons are actually checking out their Hoopla items from the stats that we've seen at least. So yeah, hopefully we can address that eventually. And then I realized we also didn't talk about the most recent Aspen releases. So those are, just got one. This meeting happens to, because of Thanksgiving, falls early. So we just got one literally yesterday. So you may or may not have noticed that one. Usually there's a little more time. Let me share the release notes. So we share release notes on our support site. There's also full release notes posted in Aspen. We joke about how sometimes those aren't always the most descriptive. I'll show you those as well. So for this release, the big highlights, big one that we had really pushed for, which was one of our Ducks priorities for a while, was improving the export to Excel. So we were able to add the ability to export lists to Excel, which is really big. And so many requests for that. So we're really excited about that. I know some libraries have talked about using it like with their staff as kind of like a way to, like build displays, and then you could export that list to then give a shelf, a page or a shelver to pull those items for the display. So I hope that will be helpful for y'all. And we've also had requests from patrons too that like to, keep a paper copy of their lists. But this also includes some improvements for exporting search results, as well as the purchase suggestions. There were just some missing fields in those. So now it should have all the fields. So that could hopefully be helpful for you as well. There was a minor search interface change. You may have noticed there was formerly essentially 4 columns in the search results. Now the call number displays right below the location. So that was a change with this release. Another change that was also a SWAN request. Previously, if a patron changed their PIN, but they were still logged into a session somewhere, like in a browser, wherever, changing their PIN would not necessarily kill that session. So they could stay logged in. So if they're, were logged in like at a public computer and it wasn't set up with software to figure out those sessions, at the end of the day, someone could just stay logged in indefinitely, which was not good. So that was corrected with this release. So if a patron changes their PIN, they'd have to re-authenticate in any other open sessions that they had. And again, you can always view the full release notes. We'll start paying a lot more attention in this group to the Aspen LEDA updates in the next year in 2023. As at Swan, we've been testing each release for the app, and we think it's getting closer. It's had definitely some performance improvements, so there's some more we'd like to see before we really start throwing our whole kit and caboodle, having y'all test it. And so you can see there's a lot of little things that make it into each release, as well as things for other ILSs that don't include ours. And then sometimes options like we just discussed the change to only show where is it instead of the available copy locations as well. And so some of those things we may not opt in for. Yeah, there's a whole bunch if you ever want to dig into those. But we try to pull out the ones that will be most relevant to y'all and Swan and give them a little more detail. And then the previous release, that was the release that added all those extra formats that Scott was previously speaking on. There was some work to help patrons if they get no results to redirect them to a keyword search if they were using like a title limited search, for example. And then there were these new theme options. So we went ahead and switched people to a full width header and footer, just because we anticipate that changes coming down the pipe with the visual design anyway. And then but you also have the ability to display a background image. Now, has anyone played with that at all? I'm seeing Jean the cat shake her head. Well, let us know if we made like this really ugly demo once. Just because I was trying to do something really fast. But I know many of you have like wonderful marketing departments and people doing your graphics for you. So if you come up with something cool, please do share. So I think we've got enough time to talk linked accounts. Wait for the chat. Oh, Jean just said no time for it. I understand. Well, it's there to play with whenever you're ready. So we had a discussion with the Aspen developers a couple of weeks ago to sort of talk through linking accounts and brainstorm some ideas of how to improve those. If y'all have things to add, please do bring those up here because we can definitely this kind of will be an ongoing development priority. I will say some of the other libraries in that conversation, like Nashville, they include a lot of schools. So they have some specific concerns about that, like around schools and different things. So some of the problems with linked accounts that were identified were that unlinking accounts related to PIN is problematic. People might, I know I'm someone that's just like, sometimes there's sites where I don't even bother to save my PIN. I'm just like, oh, I'll just reset it, whatever. If I forget it, it's fine. So for people that are updating their PIN a lot, then, just because you update your PIN doesn't necessarily mean you want to unlink your account. Notifying patrons when your account has been linked relies on a patron accessing Aspen and is not obvious or perpetual enough. So maybe you don't want someone linked to your account. You'd have to, currently you'd have to see that in Aspen that, that your account is linked. You'd have to log in to know that. patrons can't block links from individual accounts or completely block linking if they choose. So say you just don't want anyone to ever link to you. There's not really that option right now. And then librarians don't have tools to manage linking and unlinking permissions by patron type. That's bringing it kind of that school thing. If you want to make sure, say like school accounts couldn't be linked. So these were and again, type in if there's any other issues that y'all have observed. Oops, there we go. Some of the proposed solutions that came up, and these, I'd love to hear your feedback on these. So when two users link, the link would be perpetual until one of them unlinks, regardless of a pin update. Be controversial. Now is the time. Share your thoughts. Linkies. So if you were the person whose account has been linked, you would be notified by email. Obviously, if it's available, if you don't have an email in there, and then there's not a lot you can do. And as an Aspen as well, that you get notified that your account's been linked with instructions on how to unlink. Linkies would have a reminder in a more obvious place. So essentially just making it more obvious in Aspen, like, hey, this account's linked to you. Then you would have the option to break links without necessarily needing to update your PIN. So obviously, if someone linked your account in the first place, they know your PIN. So you should probably change it. But it's an option. And then when the linkies break a link, they could be warned that they might want to reset their PIN with a link to the PIN reset page. Patrons would have the option not to allow anyone to link. And then Aspen administrators would have tools to set some defaults to allow or disallow based on patron type. Those thoughts. Michelle asks, if you update your PIN to the same number, does it break the link? That is a great question, and I do not know, Michelle. We could test that though. That's a fun question. Other thoughts? Are there any of these proposed solutions that you're like, I do not like this? Oh, I see, Michelle, you're saying it could be an option to break the link without changing the number. That's a good question. I will say, I think this is a pretty high priority. Or in terms of like the Aspen developers' priorities. So while we haven't heard a ton from y'all about issues with linked accounts, they're definitely hearing more of those concerns from the other Aspen libraries. So I think these changes would come fairly soon, like over the next 2 to 3 development cycles. So basically the next 2 to 3 months. Ish. December is always light in terms of the release, but not hearing any other comments. There's no other thoughts about linked accounts. That is the end of our agenda. I challenged myself today to be done by 3 p.m. because our meetings will start being shorter. And I'm like, I gotta get used to it. Oh, here we go. Yes, Michelle says, I don't really think about them enough to care. Only privacy is good. Yes, privacy is good. Yeah, we don't really deal with the linked accounts a lot. I think because our patrons manage them. any other topics you'll have to bring up? It says, understands the convenience but worry about privacy issues between children and parents, especially teenage children. That is a big one when, at a certain point, kids may not want their parents checking out for good reason. But their cards may have been linked so long, they don't really know. And Ashley, I can't take credit for the things proposed that came from. That actually came from Jordan, the Aspen product librarian. Oh, Jean makes a good point that having linked cards means more kids get their own cards instead of relying on a parent's. The keeping track aspect of things means parents that families will share a card. That is a good point. The privacy. Yeah, so yeah, I think definitely having something more obvious in library accounts or having emails, that'll be good for keeping track. And I think this came up and did not make it into the recommendations, but I think it would be great if there could be some kind of note in the ILS as well that the cards are linked. So you as staff, when you're checking out, if you wanted to say, your card's linked to your parents, right? Something that you'd have the ability to know that without taking the extra step of like masquerading as that patron. I think that would be definitely like a heavier lift, especially across ILSs, but oh, and Michelle makes a good point. Their policy is that responsible parties can access their kids' cards. What age group do y'all have for like sort of a kid can get their own card without a parent's approval?
I'll just start talking instead of typing. Any minor has to have an adult caregiver, which I dislike and would really love. I know some libraries allow high schoolers to get it. We definitely have teens who come here by themselves and can't get cards because their adults don't come. But yeah, the current policy is minors can't get their own card.
Over and sounds like Lily Park is over 18. And it says Downers allows restricted cards for teens, but to turn into full use, patrons has to come and sign in. It sounds like Villa Park's the same. If you got a parent or guardian, they can be babies, but over 18, they get the full use. Yeah, Tim, can you speak on the restricted card?
The restricted use card is just that, like you can only check out 2 items on it at a time. And I think there's limitations on, you might not be able to place holds with it.
Oh.
I don't know the exact parameters. I'd have to check with our circulation department, but it's it's the sort of card we offer to like our homeless population here can get a restricted use card, and teens without a parent present can get one. And it just allows for like immediate that day access to something. And then after the fact, if they want to like make it into a full use card, like for a teen, they have to have a parent come in. So it's really, it's not that it like restricts what they can take out. It's just that it has fewer, you can only take out 2 things at a time on it, basically. I think it is somewhere on our website, actually. I'll see if I can find it.
My team found it. Anything else before we break for the holidays? That's it. Our next meeting is in January, and keep an eye out for the Aspen user group. We'll be posting that. I think that first meeting will probably be in February, so it's like alternating with Ducks. If you want to hit up both, and yeah, we hope to see y'all in the new year and at our shiny new Aspen users group. Happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy. Bye, everyone.